The signal, the galaxy was wide and endless, filled with countless stars and worlds. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council believed they knew every important species. Every race that had joined the Great Alliance lived under the Council's rule. They thought no one new could appear without their permission, but on a quiet night near the edge of mapped space, something strange happened. A signal appeared out of the void. It was not the soft song of drifting comets, not the background whisper of black holes. This was artificial. This was new. The station that first caught it belonged to the Zorath, a proud species with bright scales and sharp minds. Their duty was to listen for danger. But what they found did not feel like danger at first. The signal was strong, repeating, precise. It carried patterns that no natural star could create. The Zorath technicians stared at the data. They had studied thousands of signals, most weak, most useless. But this one was alive. It had meaning. It spoke of mathematics, of order, of intelligence. New life, one of them whispered. His claws tapped the console, his voice shook with excitement. We are not alone. Another species has stepped forward. The message was rushed to the Galactic Council. Soon the news spread from system to system. The galaxy buzzed with excitement. Some believed it would be a weak species, easy to guide. Others hoped for trade, for knowledge, for something fresh. The Council was proud. They would be the first to greet this new species. They would show them the glory of the stars, but not all felt safe. A few older voices warned the Council. They said the signal was too clean, too sharp. It was not a cry for help, it was not a simple greeting, it was a statement. Whoever sent this message wanted to be heard, and they wanted to be respected. Still, the Council ignored the whispers of fear. They sent an envoy fleet, fast ships filled with diplomats and scientists. The mission was clear. Find the new species, welcome them, and bring them into the fold. It was meant to be peaceful. It was meant to be simple. The aliens who boarded those envoy ships had no idea what waited for them. To them, first contact had always been easy. Every species they had met before had bowed to the Council's power. Many came from broken worlds, poor and desperate. They needed help, and the Council gave it. In return, they gave loyalty. But this time would be different. As the envoy fleet crossed the dark edge of space, they followed the signal deeper. The stars grew sparse. The void stretched endless. The crew whispered among themselves. Some felt a chill, as if eyes were watching them, from the black. At last they reached the place, a quiet system with a yellow star and blue-green worlds. They saw the planet called Earth, though they did not yet know its name. The signal came from there, loud and strong. It was not desperate. It was not weak. It was like a voice saying, "We are here, and we are ready." The envoy ships drifted closer. They sent their greetings. They broadcast peace. They waited. Minutes passed, then hours. The void answered with silence. Then, without warning, their sensors screamed. Massive objects moved in the dark. One by one, shadows emerged from the void. They were not rocks. They were not moons. They were ships, huge ships, armored and silent. Their shapes cut across the stars, black and heavy. The aliens froze. Their hearts raced. They had never seen warships like this. The Council Navy was strong, yes, but these ships felt different. They did not look like guards, they looked like hunters. Each one was larger than expected, with weapons glowing faintly across its hull. The envoy leader tried to calm his crew. "We are here for peace," he said. "Do not be afraid. This is only a greeting." But even he felt his hands shake. A single message arrived from the human warships. It was short, it was clear, it was deadly. "Leave." The envoy ships trembled as the words flashed across their screens. The crew looked at one another. Some wanted to obey, others wanted to argue, but before they could decide, the warships moved closer. Their engines burned bright, their weapons armed. The aliens realized the truth too late. This was not first contact as they had known it. This was something else. Humanity had stepped out of the dark, not as beggars, not as students, but as warriors. The signal that had seemed so bright now felt like a warning, a message to the galaxy that Earth was awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. The arrival The envoy fleet drifted on the edge of human space. Their ships were bright and polished, built for diplomacy, not for war. Each one carried banners of the Galactic Council, glowing with colors that marked peace across the galaxy. These banners had always been enough. No species dared strike against the Council's symbol, but now those banners felt like paper shields. The alien crew stared at the dark warships around them. Human vessels moved without sound. Without flashing lights, they did not announce themselves. They did not ask questions, they only surrounded. The envoy leader, High Speaker Varish, sat rigid in his chair. His scales trembled, but he kept his voice calm. "Transmit our greeting." "Again," he ordered. "Tell them we come in peace." The signal was sent. A clear message filled the void. It spoke of welcome, of friendship, of unity under the stars, but there was no reply. Only the quiet hum of power radiating from the human fleet. The youngest officer whispered, "Why do they not answer, High Speaker?" Varish forced his frill to rise high in confidence. "Perhaps they do not understand. We must try again." They tried a third time, louder, brighter, stronger. The human ships remained silent. Their weapons glowed faintly like embers in the dark. The envoy ships were small compared to them, fragile like birds trapped in a storm. The crew began to feel it, something the Council never wanted to admit. The humans were not afraid. They were not curious. They were not welcoming. They were measuring, watching, judging. Varish swallowed his fear. He sent a private message back to the Council. He begged for more ships, begged for caution. But far away, the Council elders laughed. "Humans are young," they said. "A new species. Nothing more. Their ships may look large, but they cannot match our fleets. Hold your place, Speaker. Do not show weakness." But weakness was already spreading. The envoy crew felt it in their bones. Every moment the humans remained silent made the air heavier. At last, one of the human ships moved forward. Slowly it drifted closer, a shape like a floating mountain, black steel and deadly design. Its hull bore no banners, no symbols, only scars of war. The crew gasped as they saw it. Some whispered prayers. Others gripped their consoles tighter. Then, for the first time, a voice came through. It was not musical like the Council tongue. It was sharp, low, and cold. The translation systems worked hard, but the meaning was simple. You entered human space without permission. The words carried no warmth, no welcome. They sounded like judgment, like a final warning. Varish stood tall, his voice shaking. "We mean no harm. We are explorers. We are diplomats of the Galactic Council. We bring peace." For a long moment, silence answered. The human ship hovered, its weapons still glowing. Then came the reply, "Leave, or face the consequence." The envoy crew froze. They had heard threats before, but never like this. Most threats came with arrogance, with pride. This one came with certainty. The humans were not warning. They were promising. Varish turned to his officers. His voice cracked. "We cannot leave. The Council ordered us to remain." His officers looked back at him. Some were loyal, others terrified. All of them felt the weight of the choice. Around them, the human warships shifted again. Their movements were exact, like blades sliding into position. They did not panic. They did not hurry. They acted like predators closing on prey. One officer whispered, "If we stay, we die." Another whispered, "If we leave, the Council will punish us." The youngest officer clenched his fists. What is worse, the Council's anger or these warships? The debate cracked through the crew. Fear against duty, survival against pride. Varish felt sweat drip down his scales. His voice shook as he said, "Hold position. We must obey." The humans did not wait for more words. Their engines lit like suns. Shadows stretched across the envoy ships. For the first time, the aliens understood. They were not speaking to diplomats. They were standing before soldiers, warriors forged by fire. The envoy's signals grew desperate. They shouted greetings. They begged for talks, but the humans only moved closer, weapons ready. At that moment, every soul on the envoy ships felt the same thing. A cold truth carved into their hearts. This was not first contact. This was a test. And the humans were about to give their answer. The galaxy had reached for a hand of friendship, but what it found was a clenched fist. Warnings ignored. High Speaker Varish stood frozen on the bridge. His crew looked to him for answers, but his eyes stayed locked on the massive human warship that loomed outside. The silence was worse than any weapon. It pressed into their minds, heavy and suffocating. The envoy's transmissions had been sent again and again. Messages of peace, of unity, of alliance. But all they received in return was the same single warning. A message that burned across their screens like fire. Leave, or face the consequence. Varish's hands trembled as he sent another urgent report back to the Galactic Council. His voice cracked as he begged, "Send reinforcements. These humans are not what we thought. Their ships are powerful. Their silence is dangerous. We must tread carefully." But far across the stars, the council chambers roared with laughter. The elders leaned back on their shining thrones, their voices full of pride. "Varish is weak," they declared. "He fears shadows. No young race could build ships stronger than ours. Hold your place, Speaker. Hold your place and prove our dominance." The message reached Varish. His frill fell flat. His officers stared in disbelief. "They do not believe us," one whispered. "They think these humans are harmless," another hissed. Fear turned to anger inside the crew, but they were bound by duty. They could not run. They could not defy. Outside, the human warships shifted again. They spread into a wide formation, their black hulls gleaming with hidden firepower. It was a silent dance of steel, controlled and deliberate. The envoy crew realized something chilling. The humans were not preparing to negotiate. They were preparing for war. Varish tried once more. His voice cracked through the comms. "We are here for peace. We do not seek conflict. We only wish to understand." This time the reply came swiftly, sharp and final. "You have been warned. Do not test us again." The youngest officer slammed his fist against the console. His voice shook. "We must leave, High Speaker. We must leave now." Another officer snapped back. "And what then? The council will strip us of rank. We will be disgraced. Our families ruined." The debate tore through the bridge, survival against loyalty, fear against pride. Every eye turned back to Varish, but he only stared at the looming shadows outside. Far away in the council chambers, voices still mocked. "If these humans are strong, let them show it. Their silence is nothing, their warnings are empty, they will bow like all the others." But the humans had no intention of bowing. Without warning, one of the envoy ships activated its scanners. It was a desperate move, a search for truth. Perhaps if they measured the human ships, they could prove to the council how dangerous they really were. The moment the beam touched the surface of the warship, everything changed. The human vessel pulsed with light. Its weapons armed in a heartbeat. Shields crackled to life. The air on the envoy bridge grew heavy. Every crew member knew they had made a mistake. "Cancel the scan." Varish shouted, "Stop it now." But it was too late. The humans answered, not with words, but with power. A single beam of energy cut through the envoy ship that had scanned them. Silent, precise, unstoppable. In one instant, a vessel that carried hundreds of lives was split apart. Fire and light scattered into the void. Then silence again. The envoy. Fleet screamed, panic filled the comms. Officers begged for orders. Soldiers cried out in fear. Varish could only stare. His scales turned pale, his voice weak. "They destroyed us with one shot." The council chambers fell silent when the report arrived. No one laughed now, no one mocked. For the first time in centuries, the elders of the galaxy felt fear. On the surviving envoy ships, dread spread like a sickness. The humans had not fired in rage, they had fired with discipline. They had fired as if to make a point, a message carved into space itself. "We do not bluff." Varish's eyes watered as he whispered. This was no accident, this was their warning made real. His crew looked to him, their faces pale, their voices shaking. "What now, High Speaker, what do we do?" The humans answered for him, their comms lit once more. The voice of the admiral came cold as ice. Leave this space or be erased. The envoy ships shivered under the weight of those words. There, banners of peace now felt like scraps of cloth useless against the fire of humanity. And far across the galaxy, whispers began to spread, a rumor that carried faster than light itself. The humans had spoken, and they had spoken in war. The first shot. The envoy fleet drifted in broken silence. Smoke and flame still trailed from the ship that had been cut apart. Pieces of its hull floated like ashes in the void. The survivors on the other ships sat frozen, their hearts pounding. The humans had spoken once with words, and now they had spoken with fire. High Speaker Varish felt his throat tighten. He had begged the council for caution, but they had ignored him. Now his crew stared at him with hollow eyes. Some looked at him with blame, others with despair. None could forget what they had just witnessed. On the bridge, the youngest officer whispered, "They destroyed us with one strike." His voice shook like a child's. "We never even had time to defend." Another officer growled bitterly, "We are diplomats, not soldiers. We came for peace, not war." But the humans did not care why they had come. To the humans, they were trespassers, and trespass had a price. The warship shifted formation again. Each movement was smooth, exact, disciplined. They moved like blades sliding into place. They did not hurry. They did not hesitate. It was the calm of predators who knew victory was already theirs. The council sent another command through the comms. Their voices were still proud, but now lined with cracks of fear. "Stand firm. Do not retreat. Show them the power of the council." Varish clenched his claws. His frill drooped low. "Power," he muttered bitterly. "We have no power here." His crew looked at him, desperate for orders. But what could he give? If they fled, the council would brand them cowards. If they stayed, the humans would destroy them. Either way, they were trapped. Then the humans moved. The lead warship glowed with light. Its weapons burned brighter, energy building. The envoy ship scrambled, alarms screamed across the decks. Officers shouted over one another. "Shields to full. Prepare countermeasures. Send another peace transmission." But nothing they did mattered. The humans fired. A lance of pure energy ripped through the void. It struck the envoy's second ship, cutting across its hull with surgical precision. The ship didn't explode at once. Instead, it cracked open slowly, like a dying star. Flames spilled into space as atmosphere vented. The screams of its crew echoed through the comms until silence swallowed them whole. On the surviving ships, fear became terror. One officer fell to his knees, whispering prayers. Another pounded the console in helpless rage. Varish stood paralyzed, his chest heavy with guilt. He had led them here, and now he was watching them die. The humans did not fire wildly. They did not rush. Every shot was measured, every strike deliberate. They were not destroying ships for victory. They were teaching a lesson, a warning carved into the stars, the envoy's communications filled with desperate voices. "We surrender. We mean no harm. Please, no more." But the humans gave no answer. Then, at last, a voice returned. Cold, sharp, unshaken. "You entered our space against our warning. You scanned our fleet against our warning. Do you understand now?" Varish dropped to his knees, his frill pressed flat in submission. Yes, we understand." His voice shook, with shame. "Please, no more death. We will leave. We will tell the council." For a long moment, the humans were silent again. The envoy crew waited, every breath tight in their throats. Finally, the reply came. "Leave this space, carry our message, tell your council. Earth does not kneel." The surviving envoy ships wasted no time. Their engines flared as they turned away, dragging their broken fleet back into the dark. Behind them, the human warships held their place. They did not chase. They did not boast. They only watched, silent and cold, until the aliens were gone. Varish collapsed into his chair, his claws shaking. He knew what awaited them at the council. Some would mock, some would rage, some would accuse him of failure, but none of it mattered, because the truth was already written in his mind. The humans had revealed themselves not as weak, not as simple, not as eager children begging for guidance. They were predators, warriors, survivors of a world that had forced them to fight since birth. The envoy would never forget the image of those warships blotting out the stars. The galaxy would never forget the first shot, and somewhere deep in the council halls, for the first time in centuries, the elders trembled. For they realized that they had not just discovered a new species, they had awakened something far more dangerous. The galaxy reacts. The envoy ships limped back across the void, wounded and broken. They carried scars of fire. Their hulls burned, their crews shaken. Yet the worst wound was not in metal or flesh. It was in memory. The survivors had seen something the galaxy was never meant to see. When they reached the core worlds, the news spread like a storm. Rumors poured across space faster than light. Every starport, every colony, every throne room whispered the same words. The humans fired first. The humans destroyed ships in seconds. The humans are not weak. They are hunters. Theia. Galactic Council assembled in their grand chamber, a hall carved from shining crystal and gold. The elders of dozens of species gathered, their voices loud and angry. Some slammed their fists against the stone tables. Others hissed and snarled. Fear disguised itself as pride. Councillor Drivak of the Keln rose high, his wings spread wide. "This is war," he declared. "No young race dares strike at us. They must be crushed before their arrogance spreads." But Councillor Vela of the Talar shook her head, her eyes. "Koli, did you not hear the reports? Did you not see the recordings? They cut through ships as if they were paper. If we strike without caution, it is not their arrogance that will spread. It will be their fire." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some demanded attack fleets, others called for peace talks. A few whispered the unthinkable: surrender. The galaxy had never faced such division before. High Speaker Varish stood before them, his body weak, his frill still dull with shame. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I warned you, I told you these humans were different. You laughed, and now hundreds are dead. I saw their ships, I heard their voices. They do not bluff, they do not bow." His words cut through the noise. For a moment the chamber was silent. Then the arguments began again. On distant worlds, fear turned into preparation. Armies trained. Harder, fleets were reforged. Civilizations that had never cared for war suddenly spoke of weapons and defense. Parents whispered to their children of a new predator that had stepped into the stars. Merchants spoke of opportunity. If humanity can fight the Council, they can fight anyone, they whispered. Smugglers dreamed of trade. Mercenaries dreamed of contracts. But most only dreamed of survival. The humans did not move further. Not yet. Their warships remained at the edge of their space, silent, waiting. But that silence was its own kind of war. Every day they did not attack made the galaxy more afraid, because it meant the humans were not reckless. They were patient. Rumors of Earth's past began to leak through the cracks. Stories of endless wars, of weapons born from desperation, of survival carved through blood and steel. The galaxy had believed itself to be ancient and wise. But compared to humanity's history, they now looked fragile. One counselor whispered, "Perhaps they do not seek conquest. Perhaps they only seek respect." But another hissed, "And what if respect is not enough? What if one day they want the galaxy itself?" The debates grew louder, darker, more desperate. No one could agree. No one could sleep without dreaming of black warships blotting out their suns. Meanwhile, on the human homeworld, silence reigned. Earth did not celebrate. Earth did not send more signals. Their fleets stood ready, disciplined and cold. To the galaxy, it looked less like a nation and more like a storm on the horizon. High Speaker Varish returned to his quarters that night. He looked into the mirror and saw a broken man. His eyes burned with regret. He had obeyed the council, and in doing so he had lost his crew. His voice cracked as he whispered to himself, "They will never listen. They will never understand until it is too late." And in the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers turned to vows. Small empires swore revenge. Others swore loyalty. Some spoke of joining the humans before the council fell. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was no longer united by the council's power. It was united by fear. Fear of humanity. Fear of what they might do next. Fear of the day when the silence would end. Humanity's stand. The council chamber burned with argument. Voices of dozens of species filled the air. Some demanded fleets, some demanded surrender, and some demanded silence. But in the middle of all the chaos, one fact echoed again and again. Humanity had shown its teeth. High Speaker Varish stood quietly in the corner, his body weak, his mind heavy. He no longer shouted, no longer begged. He had seen enough. He knew that words could not save them. The only thing that mattered now was what humanity chose to say, and humanity finally spoke. It began with a signal, cold and direct, sent across the stars. No greetings, no banners, no songs, just a simple message. You wanted to know who we are, listen well. The chamber fell silent as the voice of a human admiral filled the hall. It was steady, sharp, and without fear. We are Earth. We are humanity. We are not weak. We are not children. Our world taught us war before we learned. Peace, our history is fire, our blood is survival. Do not mistake our silence for submission. The words carried like thunder. Every translator worked to catch them, but the meaning needed no translation. The elders shifted in their seats. Their scales and wings twitched with unease. The human admiral continued. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek slaves. We do not seek to rule, but we will never kneel. We will never let outsiders command us. We offered you peace when we stayed in our own skies. We gave you no reason to fear us. It was you who came uninvited. It was you who ignored our warnings, and it was you who paid the price. The words cut like knives. Even the proudest counselors could not raise their voices. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy's rulers were being scolded like children. The admiral's tone grew sharper. Understand, this we do not bluff. If you want peace, we will give it. If you want respect, we will give it. But if you want war, we will give you more than you can imagine. The history of Earth is the history of those who tried to break us and failed. We are here now, and we will not leave. The stars will remember us, with your respect or with your ashes. The chamber shook with silence. No one dared breathe. Some counselors lowered their eyes, others clenched their fists. A few whispered prayers. Varish closed his eyes. His frill trembled. He had seen the truth in their fire. Now he heard it in their words. Humanity had survived not by chance but by will. Their strength was not born in empty pride. It was forged in survival. The human admiral finished with one final line. This is your first contact with Earth. Do not make it your last. The signal ended. The chamber stayed frozen. No one laughed. No one mocked. The silence of fear wrapped itself around every throat. Outside the chamber, across the galaxy, the reaction spread like wildfire. On some worlds, people cheered. They admired humanity's courage. They spoke of joining them, of standing beside them. On other worlds, panic rose. Leaders whispered of fleets, of weapons, of desperate alliances. But everywhere, one thing became clear. The galaxy had changed. High Speaker Varish walked slowly from the chamber that day, his steps heavy, his crew gone, his honor scarred. Yet inside, a strange respect grew. He had seen many species rise and fall, but none like these humans. They had not begged, they had not pleaded. They had stood firm, even against the greatest council in the stars. The council tried to meet again, tried to find unity. But there was no unity left. Some still demanded war, but their voices trembled. Others demanded peace, but their eyes darted with fear. For the first time in centuries, the council was divided, and in that division, humanity stood taller than them all, for Earth had made it stand, not with fleets alone, not with weapons alone, but with will. And the galaxy, vast and ancient, now looked upon a young race and saw not children, not students, but equals. No, worse than equals. They saw predators. Fear, across the stars. The human transmission ended, but its echo lived on. Across the chamber, no one moved. The counselors who once shouted with pride now sat frozen, their eyes wide, their voices gone. For the first time in centuries, silence ruled the great hall. High Speaker Varish stood slowly. His body felt weak, yet his mind carried a new weight. He whispered into the stillness, "They will not kneel." No one argued, because all of them had seen the same truth. Humanity had spoken, and their words carried more power than any fleet. Outside the council walls, the galaxy trembled. On trade routes, captains whispered the story of black warships that cut through envoy ships like paper. On mining colonies, workers told their children of humans who stood against the mighty council without fear. In academies, students repeated the words that had spread like fire. Earth does not kneel. Worlds that once trusted the council now hesitated. If a young race could defy them, maybe others could too. Small empires began to dream of freedom. Old enemies began to whisper of rebellion. The council felt its grip loosening, all because of one signal, all because of one stand. On distant planets, however, fear turned to obsession. Armies doubled their training. Leaders demanded new weapons. The shadows of human warships haunted every simulation. Some swore they would destroy Earth before it grew stronger. Others swore they would never even set foot near its skies, but humanity did not move. Their fleets stayed where they were, silent and watchful. They did not expand. They did not conquer. They only stood. That silence was more terrifying than any invasion, because it meant the humans were waiting, patient as hunters. In council chambers, debates dragged on. Some still cried for war. "We cannot let them stand," they hissed. "If we do not strike now, they will rise beyond control." But their words rang hollow. For every counselor who spoke of attack remembered the envoy's wreckage, remembered the first shot, remembered the calm voice that said, "Leave, or be erased." High Speaker Varish became a different man, once mocked, once ignored. Now others turned to him for answers. He shook his head each time. There is no answer. Humanity has already decided who they are. The question is not what they will do. The question is what we will do. On Earth, people watched the galaxy with quiet eyes. They did not celebrate. They did not boast. In the great halls of their fleets, soldiers trained without rest. Admirals reviewed every possible scenario. Humanity knew the galaxy was afraid, and they did not waste that fear. They sharpened it, they shaped it, they let it grow. In dark corners of the stars, whispers grew louder. Some smugglers swore humans had weapons even greater than the ones already seen. Some claimed Earth had warships that could blot out entire suns. Some said humanity had fought not just each other, but the very planet itself, and survived. Fear became legend. Legend became myth, and myth became truth. Children on alien worlds began to play a new game. They no longer pretended to be council soldiers. They pretended to be humans. They shouted the words they had heard in secret recordings. "We do not kneel," and their parents, hearing it, felt their hearts grow cold. The council tried to silence the rumors, but it was too late. Once fear takes root, no law, no threat, no decree can pull it out. It spreads. It consumes, it shapes the stars, and so it was. Humanity's first contact ended not in alliance, not in treaties, but in terror. They had fired only a handful of shots, they had spoken only a handful of words, but that was enough. The galaxy had changed forever. High Speaker Varish looked at the stars one last time before closing his eyes to rest. His voice was soft, broken, but certain. They will not conquer with numbers. They will not conquer with borders. They will conquer with presence. For when humanity stands, the galaxy trembles. And in that endless night, every world, every empire, every counselor carried the same thought. First contact with humans was not the beginning of peace. It was the beginning of fear.